Hey everybody, welcome to Click 3D. This is the program where we talk about photogrammetry and how you can use a digital camera and some software to create some realistic looking 3D models. People will sometimes ask, how big of an object can I visualize with a camera using photogrammetry? Well, if you think big, it's really not that big of a deal because you can use a drone and you can get hundreds of feet up in the air and visualize or reconstruct really huge areas of roadways, landscapes, and things like that. But when we do the opposite, when we start getting down small, we start running into problems with the lens and the hardware. So these are the kinds of things we need to start considering in order to maximize the amount of resolution that we get here. So the first thing is hardware, and what can I use to my advantage? Well, the first thing is high resolution camera. So a good digital SLR camera. This is an older one. It's a Nikon D7100. I know a lot of you have full frame cameras and that sort of thing. That is super helpful. More resolution, more pixels is going to be super helpful. Now, the lens is also really important. So I'm using a macro lens here. This is a Nikon 40mm lens, and if you have a 40, a 50, or a 60mm lens, a macro lens, then you're going to be in pretty good shape. Any of those could work without too much of a problem. One of the limitations with the lens is being able to get in close. So if I just use a regular lens, like an 18 to 35 lens, I'm going to run into some problems because I'm not going to be able to get close enough. This thing is going to just show up as just a few pixels. It's going to be, I'm not going to be able to get close. Okay, so that's very important. We have to fill the camera's view with this face of this cartridge case. So that's really important. Now the table here is not the best because it wobbles a little bit, and also when you're in close and you're pressing the shutter here, you can cause small vibrations. So I have a little remote for my camera. When I set everything up, what I do is I just hit the remote and I live with that. I'm hands off, no vibration or anything like that, so that gives me the best image possible. I'm going to be using some long exposures, so if it's vibrating, I'm going to get a blurry image, so I just don't want that. So that's definitely something that I'm going to be using. There are other things that you can use. So one is, fixturing your object, and so there are things you can use like, oh, I had one here, here. This is just a turntable, so if you have a small object that you want to put on here and you want to rotate around, you can definitely do that. I've done the cartridge case here before and rotated around. It's okay, but for something this small, it might even be better to use something like this. So I just have a little stand, I put a threaded rod here, and I put the cartridge case out on the end. This allows me to do a couple of things. I can bring this up close, and I can take the camera and easily move it up, down, side to side, or whatever. I would be okay if I put it down on the ground kind of thing, but I just like this position here because it gives me a lot of flexibility. So having some kind of a fixture is really helpful, so that's good too. Now, in terms of the lighting that I got here, it's not the best, but it's okay. I may get some glaring, but it's not too bad. So if you do run into a situation where it's really bad, you can use a polarizing lens. And so a polarizing lens will reduce glare and reflections. I'm not going to get into it too much, but basically if you have one of these, you can adapt it to your lens and just kind of rotate it around until you minimize the amount of glare. It does darken the image, so you'll need different types of exposure settings, but it's super useful. Now, something else that you can use is having some kind of object as a background for your whatever it is piece of evidence or whatever it is that you're going to visualize. So I just took a block of wood and I drilled some holes through it here, and this little block of wood, I can put the cartridge case inside. Now, you can imagine if I start to photograph the cartridge case here, I don't have anything in the background, and so this will take up maybe 40 or 50% of the view, but then the background is just nothing. It's just a blurry image. So having something like this where the head of the cartridge case sits flush is helpful, and the reason is that it doesn't try to reconstruct just the cartridge case, but it also reconstructs the surface of this block. And this block, or whatever it is that you want to use, it's nice when it has a sort of random texture, and it can be used to reconstruct. You don't want something that's just white or just a very plain or reflective. So this block of wood is not reflective at all, and it has the grains of wood and stuff like that can help help with colors and features. I've even painted these before, where you use like a stone speckle paint, and it's flat, but it has a lot of little dark and light spots in it, and that can be super helpful.